The U.S. House has just passed a Republican-led resolution condemning anti-Semitism in the United States and globally. The measure introduced by Jewish Republican lawmakers contains language that is concerning to some Democrats, and it includes this line. This is why it concerns some. Quote, clearly and firmly states that anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism. Joining us now with his perspective, we have Democratic Congressman Jake Auchincloss of Massachusetts. Congressman, I understand that you voted yes on this. Is that right? Can you tell me about your vote and how you decided to support this?
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me on. I voted yes. I'm a Jewish member of Congress. I represent a big, diverse Jewish constituency who, since October 7th, are feeling increasingly afraid and alienated. So as their voice and vote, it's important that I use every opportunity to condemn anti-Semitism. However, this resolution is duplicative. Congress did this last week in an overwhelming bipartisan fashion. The time now is to move past resolutions and towards action. And that means Speaker Johnson needs to put a bipartisan bill to support Israel on the House floor so that we can send our ally the support it needs as it fights against terrorism.
You do have some colleagues, I should say, including Congressman Nadler, Goldman, and Raskin. So there are other colleagues of yours who are Jewish as well, and they did call ahead of this vote on your caucus to vote present on this resolution. They said that this was the, quote, latest unserious attempt by Republicans to weaponize Jewish pain and the serious problem of anti-Semitism to score cheap political points. Can you just tell us why you decided to vote yes instead of present and what you think about what their point was here?
I have great respect for those members. I know how thoughtful they are on this issue and how passionate they are in helping to combat it. This is for every member's conscience and how they best think they can be a voice and vote for their constituents. In my town halls and my conversations with my Jewish constituents, I think they continue to want to see unequivocal action and statements against anti-Semitism. But where I strongly agree with my fellow members on the Democratic caucus is this is duplicative, this resolution, and we really need to be focused on supporting not just Israel, but Ukraine, Taiwan, and humanitarian aid to Gaza as well. That is what the president has asked Congress to do. We have the votes to do that in the House and the Senate, but Speaker Johnson in particular is obstructing this measure to defend democracy overseas.
What do you say to your Democratic colleagues who say the U.S. should impose some conditions on aid to Israel? They have concerns that Israel is not executing this war as carefully as it should.
Well, every country is bound by the law of armed conflict, as is Israel, and they have adhered to it in their operations to date. The United States is in daily contact with both Israel's war cabinet and IDF senior leadership to help them adjust strategy and tactics. So there's really not a huge need to condition aid. What's most critical is that we support Israel as it tries to win this war, which means dismantling Hamas and rescuing the hostages. And then we support the Palestinian people as they win the peace. And that means working with their Arab neighbor states, not just Israel, places like Egypt and Saudi Arabia and UAE and Qatar, to help transition the civil administration of services so that the Palestinian people can help realize their equal measure of security and dignity and prosperity.
Do you think that this ratio of, I mean, at this point we're talking about more than 15,000 Palestinians who have been killed, and Israel is saying about a third of those are Hamas militants, that 2 civilians to 1 combatant, is that acceptable? Does Israel need to do better? Because there is a perception, we are learning in our reporting, that Israel is not receptive to U.S. suggestions that they need to do better.
War is a nightmare series of bad choices. And this war, I think in particular, every civilian death is a tragedy. And Israel is required to uphold distinction, necessity, and proportionality as it engages in this conflict. But unless it is able to destroy Hamas, there will be future suffering in this region. There will be future suffering by the Palestinian people as Hamas governs them sadistically, and there will be future suffering by the Israeli people as Hamas continues to terrorize them. And so while this war is a nightmare, Israel needs to finish the job in ensuring that Hamas has no part in governance going forward.
Listen, and I know that you certainly, of all people, know that war is a nightmare. You served in Afghanistan, and we should not lose sight of what Israel has been through and the attack that they suffered on October 7th. I do wonder, though, from your perspective, having served in Afghanistan, knowing what the ratio was when it came to non-combatants and combatants there, what we're seeing in Gaza far surpasses what you saw in Afghanistan. And I don't mean to argue points of degree, because the U.S. faced a lot of criticism and skepticism about civilians who were killed in that conflict as well. Is that an acceptable ratio, though, when it is just so big and there are questions about whether it's just creating more terrorists?
Israel, of course, has to be mindful of that equation. It's important to stress, though, that the law of armed conflict, when it talks about proportionality, it doesn't put forward an equation. What it says is that any military target needs to be sufficiently valuable that civilian collateral damage can be justified in a court of law. And Israel is subject to that. Destroying Hamas's ability to wage terror, not just against Israel, but against the Palestinian people as well, is a high value and legitimate military objective. And while Israel should certainly be under pressure to continue to abide by LOAC, we should also be putting pressure on Hamas, because Hamas is the only entity in this entire universe of conflict that could instantly end this suffering with a simple statement. And that simple statement would be, Hamas agrees to abide by the law of armed conflict. If Hamas did that, and by the way, that would not require that it lay down its arms or renounce its charter. But if Hamas agreed to abide by LOAC, it would have to free the hostages and would have to stop using Palestinians as human shields. It could engage the Israeli Defense Forces as combatants, but it would have to do so in a way that is in accord with the law of armed conflict. Hamas is the one that can end all of this suffering right now.
Yeah, look, it's very clear that Hamas is not abiding by that they have committed war crime after war crime. There are experts who are split on how Israel is prosecuting its war as well. And I know, as you said, it's not specific when it comes to numbers. But when you look at that number, knowing, having been someone in war, is that an acceptable number? 2 civilians for every combatant.
Trying to quantify the suffering of this war, I think, is the wrong approach here. This war is a nightmare for all involved. It is a tragedy. Every civilian who is killed, Israeli and Palestinian, is a tragedy. Those individuals, those families had hopes and aspirations. What is a certainty
let me ask you
from an
this.
objective
Let me ask you this then. You said that Hamas can't be allowed to govern. You need to get rid of Hamas. Do you worry that something else as bad as Hamas, worse than Hamas, is being created when this many Palestinians are being killed?
Which is why it is so critical that the United States not just help Israel win the war, but that we help Palestine win the peace. And what that means is working with the Abraham Accord and Abraham Accord adjacent countries like Qatar and UAE and Saudi Arabia and Egypt to transition to competent civil administration. Maybe the Palestinian Authority is part of that, maybe they're not. I think that remains to be seen. But the Gazan people deserve governance that helps them manifest and realize their destinies and helps them have a better future for their children. That cannot happen until Hamas is destroyed. Nobody wants Hamas to have to be dismantled through this kind of bloodshed, but Hamas is the one who's deciding that is how it has to be.
Congressman Auchincloss, we very much appreciate you being with us. Thank you so much.
Take care.
All right, you too.